Hey, welcome back to Driven Channel, and very excited about this one because you guys built a lending company.
Yeah.
I have a lending company,
Yeah.
Indeed.
so I'm gonna steal your secrets.
We're going to give them all away for free.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so I got William Stern and Dean Lyulkin.
Oh.
Pretty good.
I like that pronunciation.
Lyulkin, Dean Lyulkin.
Ooh,
So
now that sounds good.
so you two are the founders that started Cardiff.
That's right.
20 years ago
Yeah. It's actually a lie. In April, it'll be 20 years.
in April. So
Yeah.
19 years and a few months from being 20.
Yeah, almost. Almost old enough to drink.
So this Cardiff company.
Yeah.
You know, I kept seeing pop-ups. Like I was on Instagram
Yeah.
and I kept seeing like pop-ups. And it just kept and it was almost like I think the iPhone was recording me because they say the iPhones record you, right? What
Yeah,
you're talking
absolutely. Yeah.
about or even what you're thinking about. So I know like, hey, you know what? I need a little bit of extra money right now. I need a little bit of extra money right now. I need a little bit of extra money. And then Cardiff ads kept popping up.
Yeah.
And
Following you
and-
everywhere.
yeah, like it was almost like that annoying girl that you're not attracted to that just keeps following up.
Not Marlene.
Not Marlene. I was following.
Sorry, honey.
I wanted her back then, but
Yeah.
I don't know how she looks like right
Can
now.
you imagine what she looks like by now?
I
Still
can-
living in
I-
Echo Park.
I can. Well, she was not in Echo Park. She used to take. She was in Granada Hills. That was where the school was.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I took the school bus to Granada Hills for
Okay.
my whole childhood.
Okay.
From first grade, all the way till 12th.
Okay.
So I used to go to Granada Hills, take the school bus, and she was there. But she was Latina, very curvy, really tiny waist, very good looking girl. So Marlene, if you're watching this, you remember Albert Preciado from Porter Middle School, and then send me a DM. I'm just kidding.
Do not.
but-
Don't
but-
message him.
Make
But-
sure my wife knows we're not talking about
But I don't know
her.
if I would have to take a guess.
Yeah.
Us Latinos,
Yeah.
we don't have the best genetics. So when you reach 30s and you get to 40, you really have to be very disciplined, or else you're gonna get fat. You're gonna
Is
get
it
fat.
The
you're gonna take care-
females or the males?
both.
Interesting.
Like the hot girls,
Yeah.
like the hot Latino girls that were like in their 20s.
Yeah.
When they're 30s, they get fat, and in 40s they get even fatter.
People peak early. I think that's across the board.
Now
You
there's
just-
exceptions.
Yeah.
You got Jennifer Lopez.
not my thing.
So that happens also with men. Like Latino guys, they just when they get some years, they end up getting big.
Yeah. Is it the diet though?
Is it the tortillas?
I think the Mexican food, and we're also not disciplined, most of us, of like the Latino community, but that's a whole different story. So
Maybe not disciplined in the dieting. You know what I mean?
well, they don't work out either.
Yeah. Well,
Like
that's
you
true.
even see it with the Mexican wrestlers.
Yeah, they're kind of chubby.
Yeah, very compared to the American wrestlers.
Yeah.
It's way different.
Well, we have steroids.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
Have, we have good stuff.
but I like the natural way.
You look incredible.
So that,
If I
It's
like,
popping out of his shirt.
yeah, dude,
What's going on?
you look so lean, and there's a secret to it, right? Apart from hard work, we've talked about.
I think it's discipline. Like I think when you have a vision, it has to be like a 20-year vision, 30-year vision, 40-year vision. Most people just have dreams. They
Yeah.
want to start a company, and it's a mom and pop. They get into trouble, they run out of funds, and it's just a dream to have a company. They don't have a vision that's we're gonna go 10 years, we're gonna go 2 decades, 3 decades, and then in 3 decades, this company is gonna be worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
So like me, I'm prepared for 10 more years. I'm not
We said 5. Last time we filmed, we were here.
yeah.
We said 40, 45?
Well, we're on year 11.
Okay.
Year 11 of the mortgage guy
Yeah.
that became the mortgage guys.
Yeah.
Year 11, so 5 more years is 16. If I can do it in 16
Yeah.
or even in 14 years, maybe, but
Yeah.
and who knows, maybe I keep the company for 20 years like you guys. So going back to you, Cardiff Bank, it kept popping up, and then finally I clicked on it, and I became a customer.
Right.
So Cardiff Bank, where do you get the idea? Let's start a Cardiff Bank. How different is it from the other
Like a
business
brick and
lenders?
mortar.
Well, because I see a lot of business lending ads.
Yeah.
So I know there's BHG Money, Lending Tree. There's a lot of other companies that pop up.
Sure.
And they're all offering the same thing. Hey, I'm going to give you a business loan, business line of credit, advance. How does that work? And where did you get the idea? I'm going to start this company. Did you guys grow up with money when you started? And where does the idea come from?
That's a good question. So if you go back to 2004, when we started the company, when we founded the company, it was just a normal commercial finance company. We started as a broker, so not unlike a mortgage broker, I would assume. The only difference was the mortgage industry. We were located in Irvine, and so you had mortgage brokers, and then you had this hybrid where mortgage brokers would get a warehouse line of credit.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
Direct lenders, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was weird. They would approve a deal internally. We're talking these mortgage companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would take that deal and show it to their bank,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the bank would say, oh, yeah, you can park that on your line.
Mm-hmm.
So they would put it on a warehouse line. I think back then in the early 2000 rates were in the sixes or something. Does that sound about
I
right?
started in 2005.
Yeah, so somewhere around there, like in the sixes, maybe fives,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not, maybe sixes, sevens. And you would park it on a warehouse line, which was expensive.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap. But because you knew that your bank was okay with the deal, whether it was a new mortgage or it was a refinance, either way,
Yeah.
as long as you had their approval and it met their requirements, you could then sell it, get it off your warehouse line.
Yeah.
So you could call yourself, whatever you wanted. You could even put bank in front of it. A lot of companies would do that. They would put BANC. And I think for mortgage lenders, you can do that, right, with the C, if I'm not incorrect. It's been a while. But the smart people would do that. So you'd start out as a mortgage broker. And if you didn't waste every dollar you made, which was difficult for most mortgage brokers, the money was so sexy, right? You'd fund a loan and make 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever it was. Oh, I can buy a Ferrari, I can buy a Lambo, I can buy a big house in Irvine, Newport Beach, right? I can go on a private jet and all these things that sort of appeal, but this is pre-social media.
Yeah.
So it was just really serving their ego. It wasn't serving a marketing end. Like when I see advertisements with Albert Preciado, the Ferrari's doing something. It's being leveraged as a tool. But this is, again, pre-social media. So it's just really serving an ego. But going back to your point, which is how do you start it, you had this example of these mortgage companies. I had a background in commercial finance, and I kind of knew how it worked. So it sounds interesting and it sounds difficult to figure out. But once you've worked in corporate America and the company's large enough that you worked for, and it's not just like there's an owner, right? There's like a big C-suite and,
Yeah.
levels underneath. If you make friends with the right people, they start pulling back the curtain and they show you how this all works. You say you're a direct lender. Are you really? Well, it's kind of up to interpretation. You're approving the deal internally. You're then showing that deal to your bank. The bank is approving it. You can put it on your warehouse line of credit. But then once you graduate from that, then it's a long-term facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the long-term facility, as you grow larger and larger, sometimes you can securitize, you can turn it into a bond. And I think learning all of that at a very early age was very encouraging. And it was the impetus for me starting my own thing with Dean. And then as we started out, it was driven mostly through this broker channel. And then we got smarter. And the company went from being Cardiff Financial, to Commercial Finance and Leasing Bank of Cardiff, Inc. We started offering our own credit card. And that was probably 2008,
7, 8.
2007. Okay. And so the credit card thing was very interesting because we had like 4 different credit cards and they were all 0% for the first 12 months. And I think to have your name on a credit card was a pretty big deal. I remember at that age being really immature and going out to, you remember this, but like, going out to dinner with people, throwing down your credit card on the table and the credit card having your company's name on it.
How big were the credit limits?
Whatever our bank would allow.
What's like a typical big credit card from Cardiff back then?
I think back then was probably up to like 50,000. Sound about right? Yeah.
Which was pretty small for that time.
Right, because that's when it was like people could play whack-a-mole with credit cards.
Credit card stacking.
Yeah, which seems to be back. I see a lot of this nonsense chicanery on the internet with guys going 0% business funding. I'm gonna get you $250,000 at 0%, and it's all bullshit. You'll have to edit that. And it's just all bullshit, right? You see this and they're like, take out this credit card and then take out this credit card and take out that credit card and then roll them up into one and then do it again and do it again, rinse and repeat. And they're showing off this stack of credit cards like a fucking idiot on TV. And they're like, you're going to be rich. No, you moron. You're going to be in bankruptcy court with a business that has imploded. But it's all these get-rich-quick schemes that caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. There are no fucking shortcuts in life. The truth is, the only way that you can play leapfrog in the game of business is through a network. Have you learned that? I know I really didn't complete my story on our 20-year history.
Yeah.
But I think it bears touching upon me asking you this question. Like in your 11 years with the mortgage guys, for example, it's the network that matters. Because the shortcuts will never get you where you're going. They'll seem like they can save time, save money. But you have to have a supporting cast.
Relationships are very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not burning your bridges with those relationships. I think people make mistakes sometimes and they burn their bridge with a powerful relationship.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it.
Have you done that?
Never.
I like to say I'm the relationship guy. But as you well know, right, Dean and I aren't necessarily active in the day-to-day management of the firm anymore. But I don't think we've really burnt any bridges. Like my proudest moment was COVID, where all of these business customers find themselves with little to no revenue, unable to make their payments. And we never pressured a single business. Never. Didn't take them to court. They're already losing. What? You're going to take blood from a stone?
Yeah, the same is true of the investors, right?
Yeah, right? If you bring investors into your organization, don't do anything rash that's going to make them second guess their trust in you, and also don't lose their money. Don't lose their fucking money. Because like you said, you burn one bridge, you lose their trust, and the network implodes.
Mm-hmm.
Dean and I have never borrowed $1. We've never given up equity in our firm. We've allowed people to invest with us, right? But that's a lot different.
Like 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 you raised capital and you paid interest?
Yeah. So the way we did it was we would raise debt, but the debt was just so that we could buy deals. Because in this business, and really this is more along the lines of like Dean's bread and butter, but the only way to make money in our industry at scale, right? If you want to be a small, finance lender, that's a lifestyle business. That's not a legacy business. But if you want to do it at scale, then you have to put the deals on your balance sheet, which kind of goes back to the example of the mortgage broker. You want to have a Ferrari from 10 years ago? You can do it. Not difficult. You want to have that nice house? Not that difficult. You can lease it. Want to go on a private jet? $10,000 an hour. Not very difficult. But if you took that money and instead got a warehouse line, a long-term facility, right? That's the kind of that's the growth trajectory that I think most people either don't plan for or don't execute on.
So when you started the credit cards,
Yeah.
When you started Cardiff, actually, is it you and Dean, or is it just you? And how much money do you have saved up at that point?
Yeah.
To start your company?
So when I first started the company, it was in 2004.
Was it you and Dean, or just you?
No, it was just me. I wanted it to be me and Dean.
Dean plays hard to get, huh?
Dean does play hard to get.
You're married?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Depending on the state.
In California.
Marlene,
Yeah,
don't
kids.
watch this.
Got 2 kids. Yeah, there's
Oh,
another
your
Marlene.
wife is Marlene?
My wife's name is
wow.
Marlene. That's why I was trying to say.
She's from Granada
Albert's
Hills.
not talking about you.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was your wife.
No, she's British.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely not a British girl.
Yeah.
Just you. So just you.
It was just me.
So how much money do you have in your bank when you start?
I should know the answer to this question. I think I started the company with $500,000, somewhere around there. I did a real estate deal. I'll never forget the story.
And you're how old back then?
When I planned the company, I was 23, and I'd just been fired.
So you're a smart 23-year-old. $500,000 in the bank.
Well, but looking to burn it.
Was that earned income, or somebody gave you that?
No, it was a real estate deal that I did at like a 22-year-old.
So what kind of real estate deal was it?
What I can say about the real estate deal is that I went to my father, who was a foreigner, recently passed away. But as you well know, we were talking about this.
Yeah.
We were texting. I'm like,
He passed away the same time that Sill's
grandma passed away. Yeah, exactly.
Same week.
Weird. They say it happens in 2s or 3s. But I remember my father had a lot of money on a relative basis. He was like you ever read that Rich Dad, Poor Dad book?
He was your rich dad?
My dad was the rich dad. So I never read the book, but as I understand it, Robert Kiyosaki, right, the author,
Yeah.
has his own dad, which is the poor dad.
Yeah.
And then next door or something like on his cul-de-sac
Yeah.
is a rich dad.
So your real dad was the rich dad.
My real dad was the rich dad. Yeah. So he lived a very meager life. My dad drove almost until he died a 1978 Honda Civic. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, I had a Honda Civic.
Yeah, but you probably had one in like the early 2000s or something.
I had one in 2000, early 2000s, red Honda Civic Coupe.
Red. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
It reminded me of the Ferrari.
Dean had a purple one.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
It was a manual 4-door.
We have Civics in common now.
Yeah, absolutely. But my dad drove a 1978 Honda Civic, and
he was rich.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
and
like how rich back then?
I mean, he's rich enough that he had millions of dollars, and he never spent any of it.
Was he like, what do you say, like $5 million, $10 million net worth back then?
I don't know. Back then?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
But he was a multi-millionaire.
I never opened the books on my dad, and in fact, when he passed away, I try to ask mom questions like, well, what's going to happen? She's like, it's all in trust. I'm like, don't have to worry about it. Don't talk about it. It's all in trust. You would think that they would tell me this kind of stuff, but In any event, 1978 Honda Civic, and he would go to restaurants and he would take napkins. Kind of fear of scarcity,
Yeah.
like mentality. Stack napkins, whatever. Anything that was kind of like he thought he could use, he would take. And so I remember sitting at this bagel store in San Diego saying, well, I want to buy this piece of property, but I need some money to do it. I think I was 21 years old. And I was living in Irvine. He said, well, what do you know about real estate? I said, nothing. What do you need down? I go, well, the guy at work says he's going to introduce me to this mortgage broker. And all I need is X amount of money. I don't know how much it was, maybe 50 grand. And he starts drawing. He kept a pen on his shirt right here in case he always needed to write something down. And he pulled out his pen, and I remember him flipping over the napkin and writing down all the costs associated with buying real estate. I didn't know. Title and escrow, and he's trying to explain all this stuff to me. It's like, are you going to give me the money or not? All right, I'll give you the money. So I bought the piece of property in Irvine, and I don't know how much you know about Irvine or your viewers.
I know a lot about Irvine.
Yeah. You can't lose. An idiot could make money in Irvine. And as it happened, I was an idiot. And my dad, I don't know if he ever asked for the money back.
I don't think you were an idiot. You were just inexperienced.
Yeah. I was being led to buy real estate by someone who was like, you're wasting your money on rent. Buy a piece of property. And I didn't even think, I think I bought a house before you. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And he lived in San Francisco at the time. So how can I bring this conversation back to what we were talking about? Well, I bought this piece of property, moved to San Francisco, and started working for Ken Fisher at Fisher Investments, a billionaire, certified billionaire. Not what I see online.
A real billionaire.
A real billionaire. I see things online like Master P, certified fractional billionaire. I don't know what the fuck that means, right? I've got a little bit of money, right? Maybe the company's worth a lot of bit of money. As you know, Albert, I don't spend money, very much like my dad. But I don't know what a certified fractional billionaire is. Somebody in the comments section, I hope we're live, somebody please tell me what the fuck that means. I've met a lot of rich people in my life, and no one has ever said, hey, Dick Dixon, nice to meet you, certified fractional billionaire. So in any event, worked for a billionaire, and this is really Dean's story, but he was so fucking cheap, it just reminded me of my dad. He would buy suits on eBay.
Or Amazon.
No. Amazon didn't exist back
Yeah, it was
then.
eBay.
This was eBay for $20. And he would come and he'd bring the package into the office. And he goes, look at this new suit, $20.
But some of those suits look really nice, though.
Nope.
No.
Oh, he got ones that look like
ill-fitting, weird
Oh,
suits.
weird shit.
Like,
Oh.
Albert, have you seen his commercials recently? On CNBC or anything like that?
No.
Fisher Investments? I mean, you can watch them. You can see the ties and the suits involved.
Fisher Investments.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fucking
I mean,
terrible.
I
Like
think
he's
they
on.
own 90% of the commercials.
Can you guys pull up Fisher Investments pictures?
Yeah, you should put it behind
You
us.
can watch a video.
Watch
Fisher
his
Investment
videos.
Suits.
Yeah. It's a man worth, $4 or $5 billion today, if not more.
Is it one of these guys?
No.
Just type in Fisher Investments.
That's what I did. Fish. You found it?
Ken Fisher.
Fisher Investments.
Undoubtedly, the picture that you're going to find is him wearing a suit with a tie that has like a picture of the stock market,
Yeah, yellow one.
right?
Yeah, there you go.
Hey,
There you go. There's Ken.
hey,
Boom.
how you doing, Ken? But that's not a certified fractional billionaire. That's a guy so rich that
Yeah.
that he's built generational wealth that only, the most I should be careful with what I say because you can't use certain
Well,
words.
this podcast is freedom.
This is the Freedom Podcast?
Yeah, you could talk about anything.
I don't want to get shadow banned by YouTube. We were just at YouTube today.
No, you
but,
won't. You won't.
But I think, the company he's built, it is a company very similar to a JP Morgan, a Vanderbilt, right? Like in the sense that it'll provide generational wealth.
They're public.
No.
They're not.
Owned
It's
by
probably it's the largest privately owned registered investment advisor
How much
in the
do you
country.
think they're worth?
$10 billion.
10.
And he's already a billionaire, personally.
You think $10 billion private company is better or is better than $100 million? So a $10 billion private owned company, is that better than a $100 billion public company?
Well, I think
When you own
Yeah.
over 90% of it,
yeah.
it's better 100% of the time.
Private.
Because when you have a public company that's worth $100 billion, typically you're not going to have anyone own more than 5, 6, 10, 12% of that business.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, your largest investors are funds, right? And they're all sitting on the board.
That's why Elon Musk owns a little piece of Tesla.
Yeah. And do you want to go on conference calls every quarter and answer questions
was
from
thinking.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that.
Or get kicked out.
No. They can't get, yeah. I mean,
Can't get
that's.
fired.
Can't get fired. We were filming a podcast earlier this week with a friend of Dean's who's had 2 successful exits, and I think he's working on his 3rd. He's a software guy. And he has, correct me if I'm wrong, like something like $25 million in like venture capital in his newest company.
Yeah,
Somewhere
that's what
around
he's raised.
Yeah, he's raised like 25 million. For venture capital companies, if they're going to invest $25 million, there better be an exit that's fucking 10x at the low side for that company. And he was saying, to your point, Albert, if they don't like what he's doing, it doesn't matter if he's the founder, right? They've got T's and C's, right? Terms and conditions baked in, right? To their documentation, to the extent where, goodbye, we'll see ya. It's that same old story with Steve Jobs,
Yeah, they kicked
right?
him out.
Kicked him out. Didn't like how he's, brought him back.
Then the company went down, and then they brought him back, and then went back up.
Brought him back. But there's a funny story about that. We'll tell you another time.
I
But
think
they
that's always made us uncomfortable, is
Yeah.
running a business
Yeah.
where somebody else can tell us what to do, somebody else
Yeah.
can kick us out,
Yeah.
right? I think we enjoy that freedom and that control. We never wanted to own a business where somebody else could make decisions that would affect our lives.
Yeah. When you guys make decisions, do you guys kind of like get on a group call or
No.
on a
Now,
We
Yeah.
actually telepathically read each other's minds.
really?
Yeah.
we're not included on those calls.
So let's say if you have an important decision to make that could impact your business, are you like you call up Dean on a FaceTime or he calls you or do you just this
We sleep in the same bed. I just roll over and I tell Dean, "Hey, listen, let's do this."
because you guys are
He gives me the soap when we're showering, and just,
you guys are that close.
Yeah, I'm like,
Absolutely.
well, usually the best stuff happens, like most couples, in the shower.
Yeah.
I don't pee in the shower. Dean does pee in the shower, and so the best
Oh,
ideas come. And you're washing
I'm
your.
considering
Yeah, because you're
stopping
focused.
that.
Because you don't have your phone and because you're like there's something about like when you put shampoo
Yeah.
and you're kind of like scrubbing your hair and
Oh.
you let the water hit you from behind.
Close your eyes.
Like you come up with the best idea. So that's why I shower with my phone and I have my notes open and then I'll type up notes when I'm showering.
Interesting.
So the phone doesn't get wet?
iPhones are waterproof.
IP46.
I knew it.
Lev, is that true?
Yeah.
Is
My
Lev?
wife just
not here.
washed my AirPods.
Damn,
They survived.
Yeah.
that's devotion.
You could put the iPhone inside the pool and record.
I am always in my pool with my phone.
Yeah. And if it falls, you take it out and it works.
I don't even care. I don't even use a case. I don't have my phone on me right now.
I don't use the case either.
Right. I can't. I look at people with phone cases, and I think something's broken in their brain. Right.
It's kind of like when you wear your
Condoms.
When you wear when you wear condoms and with your wife, or when you wear the COVID mask inside a car.
inside
with all
of a
those,
car. Patrick
those-
Bet David. I saw a clip of him driving.
Yeah.
I think this was Patrick Bet David. You taught me Patrick Bet David, and I
Yeah.
watched a bunch of clips to
Yeah,
catch
Pat,
up.
if you're watching this,
Yeah.
he's a cool dude.
He he was driving next to someone, and they were alone in their car with a COVID mask on.
Yeah.
Is he yelling at them?
No, but he was just like, you've got mental problems.
Oh.
And I think, it's easy to judge, but a lot of times you don't know. My wife ran into her friend, and her friend was wearing a mask. She's like, comes out, what the hell was she wearing a mask for? She's got fillers or something, right? And just doesn't want to look weird. So
Yeah.
there's reasons. There's reasons.
Or you get a pimple and you want to cover it up. Good. That's the only thing the mask was good for.
Yeah.
That's a big ass pimple.
That is a huge ass pimple. I
Or you
noticed
got
stuff like that.
herpes in your
Herpes on your mouth. Yeah.
jeez.
Shout out to. I'm not going to
Well,
say.
Trex
well,
commercial.
Shout out to. What are we looking on this?
Well,
what is this?
What's happening?
Well, that was good because when
Corona
when
beef.
COVID happened,
Yeah.
you could be an ugly person
Yeah.
with a bomb body,
Mm-hmm.
go out to the nightclub, put the mask on, and then it's almost like I don't know if you ever heard of the butterface, where you cover the girl's face with a paper bag, and they have like the best sexiest body, but
You
they
are-
cover the face with the paper bag.
What is it with Latins? You guys are just like
We're
Casanovas, sexual monsters.
very yeah. But
Dina's a friend. You should tell this story. It's inappropriate. We're not going to.
Yeah, well,
Which one?
well,
Which one?
We'll tell you at dinner.
I'll decide. Which one?
Young Chung.
Oh my goodness.
That's such a good
He has
story.
he has a real job. We can't talk.
Yeah,
about
no,
so
we can't
so
talk
so, so going back to the businesses. So
Yeah.
let's say there's a big real estate company, EXP Realty, and their market cap is about 1.9 billion.
Okay.
So let's say the founder.
Is it publicly traded?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
So let's just say 2 billion.
Okay.
So 2 billion, you got to turn the phone like this. So 2 billion, you divide that by 5% ownership. Is that 40 million? Wait, I'm not doing that right. So $2 billion, 20,
10% would be 200
100 million. So 5% is only 100 million.
Yeah.
So if you have a public traded company
Yeah.
that's worth 2 billion,
Yeah.
and it's public, you only let's just say you own 5%, that's only 100 million, where you could own $1 billion company that's private
Yeah.
and you have most of it.
But it's 2 billion now. I don't know how old EXP is. I don't know much about that company, but the idea is, $2 billion valuation in the stock market, you're left out of the big boy discussions. You remember, like, as a kid, you'd go to your do you remember going to your parents' friend's house for a party on Saturday night,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got like the adult table and they got like the kids' pit tables?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dean could speak better to this point, but I think if you have a $2 billion valuation, you're like, you're probably eating in the garage.
But
Right.
different type of guys, right? Running those companies,
Yeah.
right? Some guys are all about the flash, right? They want to have a giant business,
Yeah.
and they may not own much of anything of it.
Yeah.
But that makes them feel good, makes them feel big.
I think
Right.
the
Corner
control
office.
is important for me.
Yeah, as it is for most business owners,
Yeah.
right? Because you feel like no one can do it as well as you can. But we've talked about this. You're surrounding yourself with brilliant people who can run your businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So now just to add another company in comparison, like I was looking up Costco.
Okay.
Like Costco's a huge company.
What's their
Their market
Market
cap,
cap.
I checked it yesterday, was 350 billion. It's
That's
almost
a
half $1 trillion.
that's a real company.
Yeah.
That's a real company.
Yeah. 321 billion market cap.
Yeah.
And what's so special about Costco, right? I mean, what do you think? What makes them worth $300 billion?
Well, I
They
think
sell stuff.
Costco isn't Costco similar to like Amazon in a way, because they have stores everywhere. They have stores in Mexico,
Yeah.
China, like everywhere. I don't know if it's China, but they have Costco stores all over the world,
I'll tell you a quick story about
and
Costco.
they have Costco.com.
Sure, but they don't have sellers right, selling on their platform.
Right. They should add
They
that.
should, right?
Maybe
They've
we
probably
could-
looked at that.
They should maybe look into that. Yeah, maybe we give Costco like an idea right now
Yeah.
that could take him to a $1 trillion
Costco, listen to our
market
advice.
Yeah. Well, I think the best part about Costco, and I think it dovetails nicely with my story, is that the founder of Price Club, which later became Costco,
cap. Yeah.
went to our synagogue.
Yeah.
So just imagine you're sitting in church, right?
Yeah.
Friday night, Saturday morning, and you're sitting next to a guy in ragged clothing,
Yeah.
and it looks like he's homeless,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's in his 70s, later in his 80s,
Yeah.
and he stinks, right? And his hair's a mess. And that guy's the guy that started Price Club, which became Costco.
Yeah.
And that is true with most Jewish people. We don't give a fuck about spending the money, right? Because your luck can change very quickly, right? World War II wasn't that long ago. Our grandparents were put into camps, deported at best, murdered at worst.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you never get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Never
Where'd
get-
you think like this idea of gold and diamonds, right, being stores of value? Where'd they come from? I mean, they're ancient ideas, right? But
Yeah.
they came from people who needed a way to transport something, right, their wealth
Mm-hmm.
or any value that they had
Yeah.
in life
Yeah.
from place to place because they were constantly being, right, kicked out, murdered,
Yeah.
right, persecuted.
And
Yeah.
this is pre-cash because
Yeah.
back then you had borders every 40 miles. There was a new language spoken, a new dialect, a different written language. Jews weren't allowed to own real estate. So we had to trade. So, diamonds and gems and gold, things that you could carry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, not being able to own land, we had to figure out what to do. And that's why you have a lot of Jews that are polyglots, right? Meaning that they speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
I speak multiple languages. Dean speaks multiple languages. Every single person we know that's in our network.
Yeah.
Lyulkin, right? The Romanian wizard. Can't believe I'm bringing up his
a lot
name.
of
again.
shout-outs.
You want to know something funny?
Yeah.
So the reason why I brought Costco was because my assistant used to work at Costco,
Yeah.
and she's telling me yesterday, Albert, how come you guys don't have systems and processes like Costco?
Okay.
So I'm thinking like Costco. I'm just curious. So I looked them up. I'm like, wait, Costco's huge.
Yeah.
Like Costco's like a McDonald's. Like
Have
where
you been to Costco recently?
I haven't been to Costco like kind of like when you went to Ross last time.
Oh, I went to Ross and I fucking texted Albert while I was there.
Yeah.
Albert has the most extensive collection of luxury clothing known to man. Everything is Ferragamo. Is that your favorite brand?
Yes.
Okay. You should be a model for them. I was in not the green room, but I was in the locker room changing before I came on camera.
Yeah.
And there was probably a $2,000 duffel bag just sitting there. Even at my age and let's say like financial level,
Mm-hmm.
I thought about stealing it. I was like, do you think he would know that I took that bag?
I'll let you have it.
I don't want it.
I'll let you have it for some counseling.
Yeah, I'll do some one-on-one coachings with you.
Yeah.
But I think
You got to include Dean though
Yeah.
with the package.
Why does everyone think Dean's the mastermind? I always want
He looks like the silent striker, like the
that's
like,
the
like,
Russian part.
Like he
Dun, dun,
he listens a lot.
Yeah.
So one thing about Dean is he listens a lot
Yeah.
You know how many ears you have?
too.
How many mouths do
One.
you have? Ah, there's a reason.
So he seems like he collects data and then he goes for the kill.
Well, let me tell you how stupid Dean is. Let's get
There
back
we
to
go.
this. So in 2004, I started Cardiff, and I sold that piece of real estate, and I begged Dean for 3 years to come be my business partner. And he was like, I'm good. I'm working at Fisher. Our trajectory is like this. We're crushing
'Cause
it.
he was making good money. He was good.
I mean,
Like in my early 20s.
making like $250,000 a year or something.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. And he was a young guy. But I knew I was onto something. I I may not be the smartest, right? But I figure stuff out. Dean may be the more intellectual one between us, but I'm definitely the marketing one, right? Or at least I'd like to believe that. Is that fair?
What do you think, Dean?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think of me?
I mean, I think you're a chameleon. You have bulging eyes and hideous skin.
This video is going to get banned from YouTube, Dean.
Sorry,
William looks
that's
like
from.
William looks like he's going to kill somebody.
I think that, there was a time probably 20 years ago when you could put us into categories, right? You could say, this person's like this and that person's like that.
Yeah.
And over the last 20 years, there have been so many times where as business partners and friends, colleagues, right, gone through so many challenges and so many zigs and zags through the business that we've traded positions.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, he's the risk taker. Well, guess what? We trade, right? Sometimes I'm the risk taker, and sometimes he's the risk taker, right? This is the sales guy. That was easy in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's the sales guy, and this is like the operations guy or something.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? 2 weeks ago, right, we changed positions. And
2 weeks ago.
It's become, just working on some project, right? So as you grow a business, you better learn to assume every position and strengthen your weaknesses, right? So that you can back each other up and be interchangeable when you're needed to be. So I think we've gotten really good at that over the last 20 years.
Who's the operator and who's the visionary?
He didn't answer the fucking question.
Sorry, what was the question again?
It was, what do you think of me? I was like, I tricked. You're like, oh, I love Dean. He's the real. He's pensive and he's asking questions. Two ears and one mouth. He's a genius.
Dean is very technical with his words.
He doesn't even speak English as his first language.
Da.
Da bet. He is a tactician with both words and thoughts.
He's good with strategies.
He is, yeah. So am I.
What do you think in a business, Albert, like if you need someone who is like, if you look at an EKG on someone, right? The chart's going like this.
Yeah.
And you also need someone who's somewhere a little bit more in the middle to balance each other out.
Talking about EKGs,
Right.
This guy's in his mid-40s. You can bet on that.
Absolutely.
So
Next up is prostates, by the way, so stay tuned.
who's more of the visionary and who's the operator, or do you have both of you?
Well, we're both not operators. We don't have a day-to-day position at Cardiff and haven't for a long
both
time.
of you are visionaries then.
I think so. But I think
in our own ways, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never clash with the visions?
It's a great question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the
Of
last
course we
big
do.
fight you had?
There's not big fights, unfortunately, which usually ends in a shower with me washing his back and calming him down. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I think there are a lot of examples, and what will usually happen is I'll say something, and if it makes him mad, I know I'm right. If he thinks about it, I might be wrong. But if he immediately has that like kind of vicious reaction to it, I know that he'll think about it over the next 24 hours and he'll come back to me and say, like I did think about that a little bit more.
It's true. If the reaction is disproportionate to what's being said, then you're wrong. Does that make sense? Like if somebody says something to you, and I teach my children this lesson also, which is like if somebody says something mean to you, right? If it's not true, it should be water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
But if somebody ridicules you and is trying to convince you of something that is true, but it offends you,
That's right.
then they're right.
Yeah.
The way I teach my kids not to be offended is, again, my kids speak multiple languages, so they understand this point. I say, well, listen, if somebody yelled at you in English, you'd understand it would offend you. And they say, yeah. I said, okay. If somebody said something to you in Korean, right? Because my kids are also Korean.
Yeah.
Would it offend you? If they said something mean to you, they're like, absolutely. What if somebody said something to you in German? They were on you're crossing the street and somebody's screaming at you in German, although bad example. let's say it was Russian or something.
Mach schnell.
Yeah, jeez. Start having PTSD here from
Schindler's
World War II.
List.
Yeah, cue it up. Schindler's List, EP.
Play the music.
Play the music. That's Jurassic Park. But
I know.
in any event, if somebody screams at you in a language you don't understand, you will not be offended because you don't understand.
Yeah.
Right? So when people I teach my children, when people yell at you, just pretend it's in a language you don't understand. Unfortunately, when Dean yells at me, it's usually in languages I do understand. But I think having a business partner, to kind of contextualize this for people who do have partners, you know exactly what to say to get under the skin of your partner in the same way that you know what to say to get under the skin of your wife.
Yeah.
You know?
When was the last time that he got under your skin?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really happen anymore. Does it? Are there points where, like, I don't know. Can you think of something? It'd be interesting if you did have an example. You seem
I
like a
don't
guy
think
who
so.
keeps score.
I don't think so. I think what's important is that just like our kind of EQ is different, the way we regulate our own emotions is different.
Yeah.
The creativity levels are also different, right? He's a really creative and artistic person.
Right.
I'm not. And so a lot of times in business, that's a very useful skill set. Because sure, logic is amazing, right? Thinking things through, regulating your emotions, right? Not being impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very important.
Mm.
But so is creativity.
Yeah.
And creativity is almost the opposite of all of those things.
Right.
Creativity doesn't live in a emotionally regulated way, right? Creativity doesn't live in impulse control. Creativity is thinking about things that other people just aren't even able to think about. It's outside the boundaries or outside the box, whatever you want to call it, right? And he brings that to the table in spades. And that's extremely necessary for a business.
Yeah.
Why? Because to grow, you constantly have to shed your skin like a snake.
Yeah.
Evolve.
Yeah.
To get to that next level.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck,
Mhm.
right? Or fail.
Yeah.
That's even worse. Failure is at the end of being stuck and not being able to say, we gotta zig, we gotta zag.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we've been able to do that because we have this combination
Yeah.
of
We
creativity.
should give an example, but you're going to say something.
Yeah,
Go
so,
ahead.
so in the beginning, when you started Cardiff,
Yeah.
you started Cardiff by yourself, and do you raise money right away, raise debt, or does it take a few years?
Well, the funniest part was, yes, I did raise capital.
Like how soon?
Let's see, 04, so maybe 06.
Also 2 years into
Do you
it.
remember this? Do you remember this story? You remember this story?
I think so.
I heard you raised a large amount.
Well, whatever I raised, the guy who helped me raise the money. It's an interesting story. It was a friend of the guy who started Victoria's Secret.
Hmm.
So
Did it come with some supermodels?
It came with like
Island. Came with an island.
It came with. I was going to say something. It's 2 degrees of separation away from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what it came with. But I think what I can say is that the gentleman who invested in Cardiff was smarter than I was in terms of experience. But he wasn't prepared. He was a mortgage guy. He was best friends with this guy who started Victoria's Secret, and his other best friend was the guy who started Countrywide. Do you remember that company?
Yeah, they went out of business.
Anthony Mazzillo or something, Mazzilla, something like that. Angelo? Close enough. Close enough. That guy had a Rolls Royce, I remember, and the license plate said points.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if that
I
gives
saw that car driving around Pasadena, I think.
Yeah. So you already understand what type of person he was. And that this investor of ours was in his circle, you could understand what he was after.
Money.
Yeah. He wasn't there because he wanted to be, again, my father was an immigrant. He knew nothing about commercial finance. He was a stock market guy. Loved to brag about all the money he made in the stock market. Would never tell you about his losses. Loved to talk to Dean. Everyone loves to talk to Dean.
Why? Why is that?
I don't know. He just, because I think he knew.
I don't want them to talk to me.
Oh, he loved to talk to you.
Well,
You
you
didn't
raised,
like to talk to my dad?
Of course.
You better be careful.
Well, you raised a lot of money and you had the company to yourself, and then you wanted Dean.
I
bad.
wanted Dean bad. Yeah, I wanted Dean bad because Dean represented, at least in my eyes, Dean represented the other half of me. When I didn't have Dean, it was like me playing. It was like me conducting an orchestra with no strings or no winds or no percussion. Like, it just didn't sound as good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no matter what I did, Cardiff didn't sound as good. It sounded incomplete. And so this is not an interesting story, but
And this story makes it sound weird. But let's make sure that the audience knows that this story is not weird or unique. So there's a book called The Undoing Project by this guy, Michael Lewis. You know who this guy is? Liar's Poker, Moneyball.
Yeah.
Very famous writer who
Yeah,
most of his books have been turned into movies.
movies. Remember Moneyball?
Right.
Moneyball, yeah. That's
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. So he wrote this book, The Undoing Project, about these two guys. They won a Nobel Prize. These two Israeli
It's a good story.
psychologists. And they won the Nobel Prize, I think, in economics, not in psychology.
Mhm.
They figured out that people hate losing 2.5 times as much as they like winning. That's the punchline.
Yeah.
But why is the book interesting? Book is interesting. It's about two guys who literally are academics, professors. And they work on all of this important research, both in Israel and in the United States together.
Mhm.
When they're not together, the research sucks. And they both admit to that.
Mhm.
And they get to the United States and they want to get these faculty positions at these fancy universities, Harvard, Stanford. And they go in front of the university and they ask them, who did the research?
Yeah.
They say, we did. Say, but yeah, which one of you?
Mhm.
Well, who's more important? And they say, I don't know what you guys are saying. We worked together. Without that, you wouldn't have this.
Right.
And no one's more important.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we don't accept that. And they picked one of them to give the important faculty position to. The other one had to go to some shitty university until the other guy died.
Right.
And then only then the second guy was accepted to those positions.
Mhm.
They wouldn't believe him and didn't care. Even though both felt like when they were together with that board, with that blackboard, and they were writing, it was 10x
Yeah.
compared to one of them working on
Yeah.
their own.
Oh.
And
It's
you know,
such a
I
good
feel
point.
I feel like, you know, we feel the same way, right? When we're in a room and we're being creative and thinking through things,
Yeah.
it's 10x what we can do on our own.
So that's what you did when you brought Dean. The company just 10x'd.
Yeah, probably more than that. But I think the point that I want to get to was that I knew I was onto something. And in life, especially, well, in life, but in my professional life, whatever type of project I'm working on, I always tell Dean, I'm going to go and figure something out.
Yeah.
It can be direct mail, right? Junk mail.
Uh-huh.
It could be digital marketing. It could be podcasting. It doesn't, you know, whatever the case may be, I'll go figure it out because I'm the creative ideation guy who's willing to roll the dice.
Yeah.
But I always tell Dean, I'm like, I'm going to go do this. You stay, do what you do. I'm going to figure it out. But then what do I always say, Dean?
I'm going to get to a T,
Right.
right? A point where I've hit a wall, and then I'll ask you for help.
Right.
And we'll figure it out.
And I always do. I always get it to a point.
So he's like your Sil for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? You have this idea I'm going to have driven,
She
And-
figures it out
and she figures it out.
when they hit the T.
Yeah. And I think having that in business is so rare because most business owners are type A. I'm not type A. At least I would never agree to saying I'm type A.
What's type A?
Type A is I'm going to make a pizza. It's the most delicious pizza. Every other pizza is disgusting and I won't eat it.
It's an uncompromising belief that you're right in every single situation.
Rigidity, right?
and
Like
type-
you wouldn't believe.
So you're type B?
I don't know what the alternative is.
I like that they were pulling that up on
Yeah.
the screen.
I'm not self-control motivation.
You're the opposite.
I don't know if I'm the opposite. It's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But I'm further away from being at that end of the spectrum.
Okay.
So in any event,
So when you start Cardiff, like you raise what, like 50 million, 100 million, like is it a big number like that? And was it easy?
It wasn't necessary to be such a big number.
yeah, I think we had enough cash in the coffers
Mhm.
that we've never had to raise capital like what you're referring to.
Mhm.
When we raise capital, it's usually that we're doing an investor a favor and we're letting them go on a ride with us.
Mhm.
And generally, they're getting a very small rate of return on their investment. But for us, it's like you ever meet people who have a fear of scarcity?
Yeah.
My dad had that. He would go to the bagel store and he'd grab 100 napkins and put it in his car.
Yeah.
But-
My mom is like that.
Yeah. They've lived through hardship. My father,
My dad too.
right? My father, for example, grew up with parents who escaped the Holocaust
Yeah.
and saw their parents and brothers and sisters, their parents, brothers and sisters, right, saw them murdered, right? So they're traumatized. And my dad grew up in a household with people who were traumatized. So when you grow up in a household and that's all you know is trauma, you have trauma also. And so
Yeah.
my dad suffered from a fear of scarcity. And I don't have that. And I think one of the most genuine and generous things that Dean and I do is when people want to make a little bit of money, we give them a free ride. We let them invest side by side. I think we've done really well for a lot of people, but we've never given away any equity.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great story to tell, especially to people like we're filming a podcast yesterday.
Outside of the folks that help us run the
Yeah.
business.
True, very true. But Dean and I are still, to this day, the majority shareholders of Cardiff.
So before we wrap up here, the Cardiff, you start Cardiff. When do you really make money? When you're like, man, I made more money than I ever imagined, and at that point, why don't you? Which you kind of explained it, but why don't you?
Yeah.
I don't know how big your house is. I haven't been to your house yet, but I'm sure you'll invite me
3,000
soon.
square feet. 3,050
Yeah.
square feet.
So that kind of answers it. But at one, and then when you reach that point where you're like, maybe it's year 5, maybe it's year 10 in
Mhm.
Cardiff,
Yeah.
and you're like, damn, we're making really good money. Why do you keep that mindset of I still have to live in this 3,000 square foot home,
People ask
and I
that.
still have to drive this Honda Accord?
Yeah. Well,
Well, you don't drive a Honda Accord.
for everyone watching, I do drive something that's a little bit worse than a Honda Accord. I drive a Tesla Model Y.
But when you made money, so like I don't know, what was that? 5 years into it, 10 years into it? When did you really feel like, man, you know what? I think we're making pretty good money. Because sometimes business.
I think we made money early on.
But when do you feel like you made like FU money?
That's funny. I've never really felt that way.
Well, like, let's say the company's worth $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you go from like 0 or 1 million to like, oh shit, the company's worth now 100 million, and you're like, damn.
I think the largest amount of money that I've ever made at Cardiff in a single year is maybe $500,000, $600,000, somewhere around there. Have you ever made more than that, or have we ever made more than that?
I mean, it's an interesting business, right? We reinvest so much of the money that we make into the business, right? And so instead of raising additional capital from investors, we just put the money right back into it. And what that does for Cardiff is it builds its value, and it allows us not to raise additional funds from outside people that might be able to control what the company does.
Yeah.
And that's been really, really important year after year. And so the other thing to remember is once you go from being a broker to a lender or a funder, and you're funding deals on balance sheet, you're now putting your capital at risk. And so you look at a year like 2021, gangbusters, fantastic, right? Right after COVID, everything's wonderful for small businesses. And what happens in 2022, right? Inflation. And inflation ravages the small businesses. Why? Because they can't control their expenses.
And their costs, right?
Right? Their costs and expenses like a large business. Think about a taco shop, a taqueria.
Yeah.
They can't control labor costs and expenses the way Chipotle can. And so when they have debt on their books, they might not be able to service it. And so 2023 is going to be another positive year, but 2022 was a disaster. And so our business puts our capital at risk year after year.
Yeah. I think, I think what viewers want to understand is like, if you run a large company or a large lender, right? How rich are the guys at the top? And what's the truth? The truth is that if Dean and I sold Cardiff, you're set for life. Our kids are set for life. Maybe their kids are also set for life. But living through the day-to-day, right, as founders of a company which just keeps rolling over the capital to get bigger and bigger and bigger, the truth is that, I'm still looking at the bill at Javier's, making sure that they didn't put, the octopus ceviche on there when I didn't order it.
You don't have to worry about your bill today.
Sounds good. But I think the truth is, make carne asada burritos $5. I saw that hat recently. But the truth is that either from my upbringing, from my early childhood, I'm still scarred to a certain degree. You also grew up in extremely difficult circumstances as an immigrant.
Poor.
Yeah, in extreme 5757 Lake Murray Boulevard.
Yeah.
Dean and I-
Google Maps.
Yeah. Dean and I'll tell you this quick story. We're out of time.
What city was that?
La Mesa, California.
Yeah.
That's where we moved. That's the first place
That's
we
by
moved.
Mexico, right?
Yeah, close enough.
I mean, it's 30 minutes from Mexico, right?
This is how we grew up. Tell them the taco story. We grew up in San Diego, which is very like a Latino community.
Mm-hmm.
So all we eat is Mexican food, right? For viewers in Rhode Island, they're not going to understand that, but we're a border city, right? And as such, right, Mexican cuisine has a huge impact on our cuisine. So as kids, every time we would hang out, you should tell this story.
Yeah, so, I lived in an apartment complex on Lake Murray Boulevard in La Mesa, which is, I think today it's a middle-class town, right? Part of San Diego. And he lived in a little bit of a nicer area that was maybe a few miles down the road called San Carlos. And we would either walk or ride our bikes kind of halfway to meet each other in the middle. We were, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And what would we do? Well, we had nothing to do during the summer, so we would end up at Salazar's Taco Shop.
Yeah.
And we'd share 5-rolled tacos with guacamole, right? That was our awesome lunch.
And one drink.
One drink.
And
That's right.
And then what we did is we opened up our first bank account together.
Yeah. So my grandma Riva,
It's a good way to end it.
she's been gone for many
Is that
years.
the taco place?
Same
No.
company, but that's the one in downtown.
Is that the same font?
I mean,
It is kind of, right?
Yeah, but
Wow.
that's the one in downtown San Diego.
I gotta go try
Interesting.
them.
I had no idea they were multi-location. That's amazing.
Roberto's was started in San Diego.
But yeah, we made my grandma, who was at the time probably in her 80s,
Yeah.
we made her walk with us to the Wells Fargo branch, right? Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
And we opened our first bank account. And that's where we would go during the day to withdraw the $5
Yeah.
from our joint bank account when we were 12. to pay for the rolled tacos
Yeah. And here we are.
with guacamole.
So that was 1989, let's say. And so now we're in 2024. And I think
Now you guys go to Javier's together.
we do.
You guys split the bill or?
No, not at all.
I don't think so.
Not at all. Not at all. But I will tell you that if you ever go out to dinner with someone and they want to split the bill, they're not your friend. What should happen in any functioning, healthy relationship, it should just alternate. You got last time, I'll get this time. But if you find yourself in a relationship with someone, business, personal, whatever, and they want to split the bill, they are a waste of time. And I always tell people that time is something you can give and never get back. So be careful who you give your time to.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for having us on.
thanks for having us.
No. So
No more questions.
So Cardiff. Where is Cardiff now? Like if you would have to put out a number, like how much do you think Cardiff is worth right now, and what is your future plan for Cardiff? What's going to happen to Cardiff in the next 5 years, 10 years? Do you plan on exiting? Do you want to keep it forever? How big do you want to grow it?
I think the easiest way to answer that is we've had investment bankers come from as far as New York and Chicago and sit in our conference room and talk to us about how easy it is, right, to get a company like ours sold. And the answer's always been no. And I think probably for the last 10 years, Dina and I have always been like, well, we would never sell Cardiff. And I think what you end up realizing is that if you have a good business, you're always for sale. It's just all about the number. And for us,
What does that number look like for you guys?
I don't know. I think I am less interested in selling for $1 billion, right, than I am passing it down to our 2 children, right? His son Asa and my son Solomon, right? I have other sons also, but
Why those sons?
Oh, just Solomon's
Oldest
my
ones.
oldest. Yeah.
But what if one of the younger ones is more intelligent?
This is just my thinking, right?
My
I feel
daughter's
like I'm being
older, too.
quizzed by my wife right now.
Because sometimes the older one is not the smartest one.
Yeah, great question. I don't know.
What if you have more kids?
Stop asking me these terrible
What if
questions.
my daughter is
Yeah.
better fit to run the business than
absolutely.
my son?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Shout out to Hannah.
Shout out to Sil, right? Who's
Yeah.
your business partner who is your other half.
Yeah.
I think, the point that I'm trying to make is that if I got an offer for $1 billion today for Cardiff and Dean wanted to sell, it would be a stalemate, right? Because Dean and I are equal partners in this. And if I didn't want to sell and he wanted to sell, it just wouldn't happen.
What if he exits on his own?
Yeah,
I think we still have to agree on it.
I think the way the paperwork
Yeah.
is written, I think we have to agree. And Dean's a great negotiator, and he is very good at planting seeds in my head.
Mm.
But again,
I think he's open. He's open for the idea.
he's open for the idea. I think I think at this point in my life, I am more interested in Cardiff buying companies than I
Yeah.
am in selling Cardiff. I am interested in generational wealth. I'm interested in philanthropy and building legacies.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in private. I was just having this conversation outside with somebody about there was a pamphlet for a thing that you're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah. Webinar. Yeah.
A webinar, and it was like 2 slides about private jets. And I said, I don't fly private. I'm fucking terrified to fly private.
Yeah, but
you
to
want
answer your question, like we've got an income producing asset. It's like an apartment complex,
Yeah.
right? Imagine that
Yeah.
you own. It produces income every year, and it's nice, and you might be able to pass it down to your kids. We see a lot of people sell businesses,
Yeah.
and if they do it young enough, in their 40s or 50s, no matter how much money they made, unless it's billions,
Mhm.
right? But people who made tens or maybe even low hundreds of millions, they end up in a weird place.
Yeah.
They got nothing to do, nothing to think about,
Yeah.
and a lot of investment opportunities.
Yeah.
And you almost want to draw a parallel with a lottery winner.
Yeah.
What happens to lottery winners?
Such a great point.
Nothing good, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bad investments,
And you lost it all.
and maybe you didn't lose it all, but you've lost the lifestyle that you thought you were going to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's almost as bad as losing it
Yeah.
all for some of these people.
Yeah.
Because
So-
they can't hang out with the friends that they thought they could hang out
Yeah.
with.
So, for example, a friend of mine, Patrick Bet-David,
Mhm.
I'm actually going to go see him in a couple of weeks.
You introduced him to me. I mean, you told me about him,
He
right?
he sold his company recently for $250 million.
Okay.
He was 80. I think he was 81% owner.
Yeah, if
And-
you would have
and-
held on to it, it would have been.
Well, when he sold it, his company's EBITDA went up, I believe, 70%.
After he sold it?
Yeah. So now it's worth 70% more.
Yeah. You know,
He should have kept it.
I don't know what his, again, like his aspirations might be different. He seems very like politically motivated to the extent like maybe he runs
But
for
wouldn't you have
political-
held onto it 2 more years if it's 70% higher EBITDA?
Depends how much mental anguish it was causing him.
Yeah.
Maybe he wanted to be
Yeah.
rid of it.
Sometimes the exit frees you from heart attacks.
Yeah.
I can
Right.
see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Dean and I at this point in our mid 40s, I'm interested in being a podcaster and
Yeah, I know.
interviewing business owners and having them tell their stories.
But by the way, how did you find me? I asked you that last time. Like, how did you find me on social media? Like, what did I do right so I can do more of that?
You started this podcast today by telling everyone that you have a client relationship with Cardiff, right?
Yeah.
And so we were at our holiday party and we were talking to some of our employees about our goals of building a podcast and doing more social media.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I turned around and asked one of our folks that manages renewals, do we know anyone that has any significant social media presence?
Yeah.
And one of them yelled out, Driven.
Yeah. Driven
That's it.
Enterprises Inc. And of course, I don't know who
And
that
we
is.
said, we don't know what that is.
I don't even think I had like an Instagram, but it was like, it was pictures of kids.
You DM'd me and
That
and
night.
it was like on those, it filters out like spam.
Yeah.
So you were under my spam.
Yeah.
Then I clicked on your page and you didn't really have any followers. So I'm like, who's this guy?
Right.
And then I asked one of your workers.
My workers. Which one? The one in the kitchen?
I'm like, who is this? Is this the real?
Yeah,
Is this the real? Founder of Cardiff? And he's like, oh yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very interesting.
I thought it was super cool
Yeah.
because if you look at the makeup of our constituents, right? The
Yeah.
people who borrow from us, our population, no one has a social media presence like Albert Preciado. This is a guy who owns multiple million-dollar companies, but has an asset that has yet to to hit that trajectory that is like vertical, straight vertical.
You think it's like the beginning?
Yeah. I think I'm coming in. You know how like people are like, yeah, I knew this guy before he was da da da. It's like, that's the story I'm going to tell in 10 years. Like, yeah, I met Albert when he was in the Sunset Towers,
That little office.
yeah, that little, whatever, 20,000 square
Shitty
foot
office.
floor plate. Yeah.
That little shitty studio.
Yeah. This little tiny studio. And
Yeah,
I think
what we do know is the rest of the story's up to you,
Yeah.
right? You're in control.
Yeah.
And you're smart enough to figure this out. Just don't burn the boats. Don't
Yeah.
burn the ships.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Don't take away all the plan Bs,
Mhm.
because that can be dangerous at this point, right? When you're in your 40s and you've got a family and you've built something, right? Don't burn all the boats.
yeah.
We
Well,
don't advise that.
What's the plan Bs?
Specifically for your situation,
Yeah.
I think driven mortgage and driven realty, driven mortgage, driven escrow is something that needs to be rolled out to all 50 states. And I would start planting seeds in states or cities that have large Latino populations. And I would bring them in and train them through a driven mastermind so that they think and they scale and they market and they drive in business the same as you do today. So they become this following of a brand, which is Albert.
Like Virgin.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that spreads from Houston to Austin to Dallas to San Antonio, right? To Phoenix and
Miami.
Scottsdale and Miami and everywhere in between that has this large Latino following. And I think that's your Costco,
Yeah.
right? And then my dream is one day to be sitting at synagogue right next to you and you'll be in like sweats, and I'd be like, you figured it out.
I'll take care of the spending, so I'll pay for you guys. You guys can just help me get there, and then I'll spend money. I'll show you guys how to spend money.
My favorite
I'll
text
give
message.
you a Ferrari.
My favorite text message to Albert is I saw him a week ago, I think. We can end it like this. I saw him in jeans and a hoodie, I think. And I was like,
that's the day I was fasting. That's why.
yeah. And I was like, I can be friends with Albert.
Yeah.
Albert looks like me.
That's me when I reach a certain level.
Pair of Travis Scott's on him and sweats. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Albert. When Albert starts driving a Tesla, you know what I mean?
I already do.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. Wait.
Big announcement.
Yeah, big announcement. Is this the big announcement?
Is that a big announcement? I've had it for 3 years.
Oh. What a
Thought it was something
letdown.
new.
The last time I was here, I was like, Albert, Syl doesn't listen to this. Albert, sell her Rolls Royce Cullinan. What does she need a $500,000 car for? Give her a Model X. The doors go up and down. The kids are going to love it. It looks like a dragon.
She hates Teslas.
Ugh.
Yeah. She'll probably divorce me if I give her a Tesla.
Do you know a Tesla
Chrysler
car?
Pacifica. She
All
would
right, no,
love that.
that's like suicide. Nobody's asking for that. My wife drives a Model X Tesla.
Yeah.
$140,000 car, super fast.
Is it the Plaid?
Oh, I have a story. We'll tell you after.
All right.
We blew up the Plaid.
I have the Model S Plaid.
You do. How many? Oh. All right.
Yeah, we'll leave it like that. So
We'll leave it like that. This guy's way too many cars.
So to end this, I have a very important topic that I'd like to spend 5 minutes with. But before that, your C-suite right now. How big is your C-suite, really quick?
They have 6 people.
Yeah,
on
half
our
a dozen
executive
maybe. Yeah.
Executive committee.
Yeah.
6 people. Yeah. Impressive. So really, I'm really excited for this new relationship.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you guys. I learned a lot from you guys.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for your possible exit in the next few years.
No, not gonna
But
happen.
to end this, I have something important for everybody watching this. I know that we got together and created a driven funding, right, where we help people, especially like people that follow me, my audience, Latino Americans, millennials, that have small businesses and they run out of money, or they maybe have money coming in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days from now.
Right.
And they need to pay for payroll, they need to pay for equipment, and they need to market. They need to do their marketing to continue to grow. So now with this, we offer them some funding, which how you two, your company has helped me also, in the past. What do you have to say about that? How do you feel about that partnership? What's your vision for it?
I think everything needs to be branded as driven. It is the most marketable brand that I can think of in recent history. It is a brand that has an amazing following of real followers, of real engagement. We've talked about this before. When I look at your social, it's amazing. Because there's a lot of influencers, right, that A, don't have a company, and B, when you dig into their comment section, you start to see that the carpet doesn't match the drapes.
Yeah.
With driven funding, I see a natural evolution of a company that offers financial services from mortgage to real estate to escrow, and now is dipping its toe in the proverbial, right, waters of business funding. I would say there's a large following, obviously of people in the real estate field that follow Albert Preciado, but there's also a strong population that are business owners. And sure, maybe they own realty companies, maybe they own escrow companies, maybe they flip homes, maybe they do home services, plumbers, excavators, roofers, contractors. All of them follow you because they believe in the brand, they subscribe to the brand, they see a lot of themselves in you.
Yeah.
Aspirationally, they want to be like you. That's why we follow people online. And if those people now can have access to business funding through driven funding, it's just the next natural stage in the evolution of a large financial services empire. Sure. How old are you? 40, 41?
40.
40.
Don't add a year.
I know how you feel. But it's that natural evolution, which is most mortgage and real estate companies fail to evolve to. They stay in their lane. They're happy with the products and services that they can provide.
So key takeaways right here is like the driven brand is way more powerful than these public companies. And I just made a decision that I would never want to be public. I think I want to be private and grow that with the brand, the influence.
Dan Fleischman, who's a friend of all of ours, right? He talks about this all the time. The lesson that he learned, I think at 24, being the youngest person to take a company public, right, in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible idea. You lose control of your company. So in any event, I wish you all the luck with driven funding, and we, through this partnership, are going to do everything that we can help to drive this brand to be number one, right? We are financially incentivized, obviously, as partners with you. We want to see it do well. But we also understand that success doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And to Dean's point, don't burn the ships, right? Don't turn your back on income producing assets like, right, the mortgage company, the escrow company, the realty company. However, soon you're going to have to decide, right, of all your companies, which gets the most eyeballs, which gets the most attention, and where you can leverage your dollars the best.
Right.
In my opinion, right, I think it's the driven. What do you think? Let's end on this thought. All your companies, the portfolio of companies that you own, they're all children.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, you ridiculed me and you said, well, why are you going to give it to your oldest son, Solomon? And why are you going to give it to Asa? Right? Why are you going to give it to those kids? You know, the oldest kid's not necessarily the smartest. Well, you have kids.
Yeah.
And I don't mean your two daughters. I mean the portfolio of companies that you have today.
Yeah.
Who are you going to bet on? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
The biggest influence is by far driven.
Okay.
So the more driven grows, the more all the companies grow.
Right.
So like the other companies need to be professionalized, and that's what we're working on. And
Yeah.
I think driven all the way is the most influential, where I could reach people like all over the world.
Yeah. I think what I would add to that as a prognosticator, as somebody who can see the future, driven needs to be in every city.
Yeah. Well, we're doing that 2025.
Yes.
You guys are going to be part of it.
I would love to be. I think we're on board. But it needs to be in every city. And at that city in particular, you're on stage and you are hyping people up, and people are putting their arms in the air and they are excited. They are believers. It's like going to a mega church. I can't believe I'm in the same room as Albert Preciado in like a concert. They're holding up their cell phone. They're taking video of you. Their Instagram live, their YouTube live. I just joined Driven Realty, and it is ridiculous. And let me tell you why. And if you double down on this vision that I have for you, Driven will explode in 2025. You won't have to go live to find agents, mortgage brokers, people who want to join your escrow company. They're going to join your religion. And that's when you hit critical mass. When you have believers.
Yeah.
We'll end on that.
But thank you. Any closing thoughts, Dean?
How do you follow that up, by the way?
Dang.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. No, I mean, I think we're excited for you to build Driven Funding and get into the space that the entire banking industry has abandoned, right? The banks in America have abandoned small business owners earning under $1 to $2 million in revenue. And so it's time for you, Albert, to offer a lifeline to those business owners, especially the Latino community.
Yeah.
And today, powered by Cardiff. Tomorrow, maybe as partners or on your own, right? As we grow that.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm very excited to
It's a
see
great
that
point.
happen.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Well, awesome, guys. Thank you very much for being at my podcast here, Driven Channel. And anybody watching, hit us up, follow them. Where can people follow you guys?
My handle is just William Stern.
I'm at Dean Lyulkin.
I say it almost like you.
Yeah, your Russian
Well-
accent's
A little
amazing.
well, sometimes, like, I've dated some Russian girls, and they thought I was, like, Mexican Russian.
Listen, my name is Vadim Lyulkin. So,
Yeah.
if you want to get real with it, right?
If anyone from immigration is currently watching, he currently has all of his papers on him. So no need to-
Albert is a
do.
Russian name, by the way.
Interesting.
Yeah, look it up. Cool.
We're
Well,
outta here.
thank you guys.
Thanks
you
for
for
letting us
Thank you.
tell our
watching.
Thanks for
story.
having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Cool. Adios. See you guys next time. Cool.